Hello, today is Friday, May 9th. Welcome to episode 450 of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you quickly up to speed 3 times a week on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. I'm NSI fellow Jessica Jones, and I'm joined by my favorite trio on this fun Friday. We've got Les Munson, we've got Matt Hayden, we have Algene Sadjuri. All right, guys. So I said fun Friday, but we're going to start with maybe not the funnest topic. We're back to trade. There have been some announcements this week. A trade agreement with the United Kingdom earlier this week marked a significant development. It was kind of hyped in the news. The deal reduces U.S. tariffs on British cars. It eliminates tariffs on steel and aluminum. And the U.K. has agreed to lower its own tariffs. But not all tariffs has gone away. The U.S. has reduced, its tariffs from about 27.5% to around 10%. So kind of the baseline we've been talking about for a while. But maybe potentially more exciting the news, but a harder deal to get. The U.S. and China have agreed to initiate trade talks, and they're going to be meeting this week in Geneva for negotiations. China has implemented stimulus measures domestically to counter-effect the impact of U.S. tariffs. They've been trading more amongst their neighbors, but tariffs are still high, over almost 150% across the two countries. We're starting to hear stories, from folks in U.S. ports that they're seeing cargo ships come on, partially empty. And we might see higher prices really coming to consumers in the near term. But this morning, President Trump, always a social media influencer, said that an 80% tariff on China seems, quote, right, but he would leave it up to Scott B., which would be our Treasury Secretary, who will be leading negotiations. So it seems like the Trump administration might be open to lowering tariffs. All of this in the background, don't confuse, the UK is no longer part of the EU, so the EU is still trying to figure out their own trade deal. They seem a little less conciliatory towards the Americans, still a little angry, and talking about countermeasures. Okay, so a lot going on this week, potentially, depending on what you guys think. So Les, I'm going to turn it first to you. Is this U.S. UK trade deal a big deal? Is it a signal that we're going to see a lot of these deals kind of percolating through the news, and we should all calm down and the markets are going to be happy?
Sure. Yeah. That's right. Is it a deal? I don't know. What kind of deal is it? This is like the world's fastest trade agreement. The details are
on principles, not details.
Yeah, there's not a lot of detail. Is it good? It seems good. If you're banging your head against the wall and you stop banging your head against the wall, that's a good thing. I still think a 10% base tariff is not good. I don't know why we would do that to ourselves. If the British want to sell us a quality product, we should buy it from them. If it's the better thing and it's cheaper than alternatives, why wouldn't we buy that? I don't understand. Will there be other deals? I certainly hope so. I hope this is the beginning of a trend of moving towards much lower tariffs. In the grand scheme of things, global free trade is fantastic for the United States. It's what has built our economy into the world-leading economy that it is. We are the top dog because of global trade. And restricting it is just generally a bad idea, in my opinion. It doesn't work. It's very hard to achieve any of the policy goals that you have through this mechanism. So I'm all for lowering whatever tariffs we have in whatever manner it is that we have to do that politically to get there. That's good. So let's keep doing it.
So Les is for not banging head against wall. Okay, one vote there. Okay, Algene, turning to you. The U.S. and China are meeting over the weekend. Kind of what's at stake here? Why are we coming to the table now? Are you surprised?
Well, I'm not surprised. I think it's important that they meet. I do still remain concerned about the posture this morning announced by the president on Truth Social around 80% tariffs on China seems right. I wonder what American small businesses have to say about that and what Scott B thinks about that. Because it seems to me that 80% tariffs still cut significantly into the profit margins for the average American business, small business that's importing from China. And so I do think that, we're going to continue banging our head against the wall 80% of the time versus 145% of the time, but it's still doing some damages. It's still doing some damage to our heads. So I'm a bit concerned about that. And hopefully we'll get to a common sense approach to tariffs soon.
Matt, give us some good news. We're heading into the weekend. Is a common sense approach coming? Like, what's on the horizon?
So, from a national security perspective, one of the things you have to consider is that Chinese interests, at least under the current regime, under Xi, do not hold the success of the Chinese economy above beating the United States. And so there is a resetting or a balancing of that relationship that does require some of these levers to be pulled, because in the interest of the Chinese strategy, there's not both teams can win. There is only the Chinese can win and the U.S. has to lose. And so when you're going into negotiations with people like with that level of faith at the table, there has to be a little bit more aggression put forward into those negotiations to level that out. We also have the standing potential where, just as Les and others mentioned, that free trade supports and has been where the United States has grown. The United States has also been one of the leading innovators for the last 200 years. And that innovation has spawned us becoming a marketplace that drives free trade globally. So to the extent that we're looking to our strengths of the past and looking to being better negotiators in the future, an area where that is balanced actually provides a blanket of better relations, better understanding. And while it feels very unpredictable right now, we're actually heading towards a more predictable outcome moving to the future. So I would say this is in the throes of what everyone in DC hates of I can't tell what's going to happen tomorrow. And the Trump administration doesn't specialize in knowing what's going to happen tomorrow. But it does posture us for at least an outcome that is a balanced environment that takes into consideration, candidly, our partner's intent and works from there to reset and become more predictable into the future with all those understandings on the table. So I think there is a potential for silver lining here. I think that obviously the stock market and everyone watches the Fault Line podcast very closely. So I want to make sure they understand that this is a good thing
of our popularity.
and that we should make sure that investments in the United States, as well as in our ability to have a global supply chain, continue and keep that market standing.
It's a lot of pressure on Scotty B.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, guys. Now, so on Wednesday, we talked about the conclave. And very quickly, this is our, just to wrap us up, we've got a new pope, and he's American, guys. And so, Les, I'm sorry, it wasn't your pick. You got a little, Pizza Balla did not win, did not get selected. So, quick round question. Do we think the Bears are going to win the Super Bowl this year?
Listen, this guy was my second choice. Pizza Balla would have been amazing. But Leo the 14th, fellow Chicago Southsider with me, I support him. I think this is excellent. Obviously, the Bears are winning the Super Bowl. I'm a little concerned about him being a White Sox fan. That probably means he was in prison at some point. But you know what? We're all forgiven. That's part of the deal when you're the Pope and the Christianity thing. So again, great pick. Good for Chicago. Good for the world.
I'd like to point out that Algene really believed for a minute that he had been in prison based on Les's description.
I mean, there's a very high correlation between White Sox fan and the formerly incarcerated. It's just
so. Matt and Algene, were you surprised that we have a new American Pope?
I was very surprised, and I kind of teared up. It was really a beautiful moment for me. But go Red Sox.
No, wrong one. Not even.
No, I'm not going there. It will be interesting to have an American Pope. There was a lot of kind of like unspoken rules about having an American Pope being a problem. So we'll see how this turns out, because they didn't want, the Cardinals traditionally don't posture a leader that is aligned with what they consider to be a superpower. And so it will be interesting to see how they balance that. And if there's almost a shift away from American politics on purpose to kind of hedge that. And so that might also be refreshing to have a little bit of an American that doesn't behave as American from on the stage. So we have a lot of opportunity there.
Well, I saw that a young American man that was studying abroad in Rome said, he was there at the square, he said, I don't know if this is true, but he looks like he's going to crush it. So very American. And I was just like, yes, perfect.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Well, that is the perfect wrap. Everyone, let's crush this weekend. That's a wrap. Thanks so much to Kelly Crowley, Taylor Lane, Claude Jennings, and all of our hosts today for their help and participation in producing today's episode. Join us on Monday, May 12th, after a weekend of crushing it for another episode of Fault Lines, the National Security Institute's podcast that gets you smart fast on the national security and foreign policy debates shaking up America. We're on YouTube. Check us out there. And if you like what you heard or saw, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe.